Okay, so everyone knows the story of Dr. Faust, right? The brilliant scholar who sells his soul to the devil for ultimate knowledge. But what if I told you the story didn't actually end when the devil came to collect? What if that damnation was contagious? Let's get into it. This is the huge question at the heart of one of literature's earliest and most forgotten sequels. It's this wild idea that evil isn't just an action, but a legacy, something that can be literally passed down from a master to his apprentice. The original story wraps up with Faust's absolutely gruesome death, a real cautionary tale. But then, a book published in 1593, just a few years after the first one, picks up right where all that horror left off, and it suggests that the real danger was only just getting started. So Faust is gone, but he didn't exactly leave an empty house. And what he left behind? Well, it wasn't money or property that mattered. It was something way, way more dangerous. A legacy that falls right into the lap of the one person who saw exactly how it all ended. And that person is Christoph Wagner. Now, he wasn't just Faust's servant, he was his student, his protege. This guy had a front row seat to the entire spectacle, all the magical highs and, of course, the demonic, soul-shattering lows. He knew better than anyone the price Faust ultimately paid. And this is the absolute turning point. Wagner inherits the very tools of Faust's damnation. We're talking his entire library of forbidden, occult knowledge, the spellbooks, the incantations, the literal keys to summoning demons. Everything you'd think someone would immediately burn, he now owns. So this is where the story really takes on its own twisted life. Faced with this insane inheritance, Wagner has a choice to make. Does he learn from his master's horrific fate, or does he follow him right down the exact same path? And what's so fascinating here is just how deliberate it all is. This wasn't some accident. Wagner saw what happened, he took possession of the tools that did it, and then he consciously chose to repeat the whole process. He opens the books, he performs the rituals, and he makes the call. And guess what? Someone answers. But it's not the grand, terrifying Mephistopheles that Faust dealt with. Nope. Wagner gets his own personal demon, a spirit named Auerhahn. The deal is exactly the same, though. Power and service now, in exchange for your soul later. The cycle is officially starting all over again. And this detail, it just brilliantly illustrates the difference between the master and the apprentice. Faust's demon was this imposing fallen angel type. Wagner's demon, it often shows up as a monkey. Yeah, a monkey. You can feel this level of dark comedy, of parody, baked right into the story from the very start. Which brings us to a really key theme of the Wagner book. See, it's not just a repeat of the Faust story, it's a commentary on it. It's exploring what happens when you have the ambition, but not the genius, when the copy tries to live up to the original. I mean, Faust was driven by this monumental, tragic thirst for absolute knowledge. Wagner, on the other hand, is basically a secondary scholar. His ambition is just a dangerous imitation. Where Faust was doing these grandiose experiments to understand the universe, Wagner uses his magic for, well, more mundane tricks and entertainment. He's almost a parody of his master. And his adventures totally reflects this. The narrative gets a lot more episodic, just following Wagner as he travels the world, basically showing off. He isn't wrestling with the fundamental questions of existence. He's using demonic power to win arguments and perform for crowds. It's a shallower, more practical kind of evil. So, you might be asking, what was the point of all this? Well, the authors of the 1593 book had a very clear purpose. This wasn't just a sequel for entertainment's sake. It was meant to be a kind of public health warning about a spiritual disease. The book's message is pretty stark. First, evil doesn't just die with one person. And second, that temptation to take shortcuts for power, it's not just for geniuses like Faust, it's a threat to absolutely everyone. The story of the servant falling into the exact same trap proves that this is a universal human weakness. And to get this message across, the book uses a really surprising tool, satire. It's filled with what critics call low comedy, especially in how Wagner interacts with his own human servant. This creates this funny, dark mirror of the original Faust and Mephistopheles dynamic. It's actually parodying the very structure of the first story. This really brings us to a crucial takeaway. The Wagner book is, as scholars put it, heavily larded with religious warnings. It's a didactic work. It's designed to teach a lesson, and that lesson is, sin is a path. And once that path is carved out, it becomes incredibly easy for other people to follow. So, that brings us to the core idea of this whole forgotten sequel. It recasts the story of Faust not as a singular tragedy, but as the beginning of a contagion. And this is what makes the Wagner book so compelling even today. It frames this forbidden ambition as an infection. Faust was patient zero, and his damnation became a kind of hereditary disease, passed down through his books to the next generation. Wagner catches it, and the cycle just keeps on going.
And that leaves us with a question that feels incredibly modern, doesn't it? The book was a 16th century warning about demonic magic. Sure, but it's really about the power of inherited ideas. It makes you wonder, if the most dangerous things in the world aren't demons but ideologies, how do we ever break the cycle? How do we stop the infection from spreading?